Don't call each other names. No put downs. No name calling. No labeling. No mocking. No mimicking. Don't call people names. It's disrespectful. There's no goodwill in it. And if you call people names, what you're really doing is a form of contempt. You're basically saying that I'm better than you and you're worse than me. I'm morally superior to you, you're less than me. And if you really want to live your life that way, feel free. I mean, you can. But don't assume that you're going to have a healthy, loving marriage and you're not going to solve problems well at all. So, a second thing you never want to do, you don't call names, all right? It's just mean. There's no goodwill in it. If you call them names, you'll feel superior. You'll feel better about you. You'll feel less about them, but that's okay. The goal here in calling names isn't to build a relationship. It's to invalidate. It's to put down. It's to tear. It's to destroy. So you'll feel good about that. Another thing to do is, though we don't want you calling names, listen up on this one now. Luella, in the early years of our marriage, did this twice. I have never done this in 37 years. But Luella did it twice in the early years in frustration and an argument. Never throw out the word divorce unless you're willing to do it. Early in our marriage, twice, I think in the first 6 years, in frustration, Luella made a comment. Well, maybe we should just divorce or maybe we should just split up. And I'm like, how do we go from A to this, right? From A to D, the D word. How do we get there? You see, I grew up in divorce, so Luella. So divorce is never going to be an option for me. I loved her. Yeah, we may have issues. I was very immature back in those early days of our marriage, but I still loved her enough, and I knew we were going to make it. Why? Why would I want to throw away the relationship with my best friend? That doesn't make sense to me. But she threw it out twice, and I forgave both of them. I really did. But what I did not know is this. Unconsciously, the second time, even though I forgave it, it left a question mark in my unconscious mind. Well, what would it take for you to leave me then? In other words, it left a level of insecurity that she was actually committed and dedicated to us. That at some point, something might go a way that was not the way she wanted, and I was going to lose everything. So what I ended up realizing years later when I got a revelation that this is actually in my heart still, I started holding parts of myself back from her, just in case she might leave me one day. You see, when you throw out the word divorce, those kind of things, that suggests there's not a long-term commitment here. This isn't really till death do us part. This is just till I'm frustrated enough that I'm leaving. What you're actually sending the message to your spouse is, I am committed as long as I get my way, my needs met my way, whatever. I told Luella early in the marriage, and I jokingly said it, but I actually meant it. If you ever leave me, I'm going with you, all right? Don't throw out the word divorce. If you need to separate and go get some space, go do that. That still implies we're still together. We can still be an us. But if you don't throw out the word divorce, you understand you're sending a very strong message to a marriage that was supposed to be till death do us part, that you both committed to love long term, unconditionally. Don't use the D word. Don't go throwing that out. I get you're frustrated, and I get that sometimes you're not sure what to do. You feel stuck or whatever. I get all that, and I'm actually okay with all that. In Relate Well, we actually teach you what to do and how to get unstuck and make better choices, and we show you how to do what you want to do so you can create what you want. All right. Another thing is it's the old joke you always hear a lot of times. It goes something like this. Two guys were talking about their spouses, and one guy says to his buddy, he says, yeah, every time my wife gets mad, she gets historical. He goes, you mean hysterical? He goes, no, she gets historical. She brings up everything from the past. Funny little joke, but there's a reality. If it's in the past and it's been forgiven, leave it there. Don't keep bringing up things from history. If you continue to bring things up from history, you can justify it all you want. However, it still leaves the idea that whatever has happened in the past is unresolved, it is still alive, and unforgiven. Thus, the things you keep bringing up on a regular basis that are from history, actually, emotionally, are still very much alive. You see, when you forgive, then that means you let it go. My youngest son, many years ago, he came to me. He said, Dad, I want to thank you for something. I said, what's that? He said, I think he was around 21 at the time, 19, something like 19, 20, 21. He said to me, he goes, when we were always growing up and you disciplined us, you always told us, you're forgiven. This will never be brought up again. It's a dead issue. If it comes up again, it'll just be a new issue. And I did say those things. And he thanked me for that. He said, I go, why are you thanking me for? He goes, you never did. You always let it go. I said, yes, son, because when you forgive something, you choose to not remember anymore. Why? Because you want to move on. I'd rather have the relationship than stay in resentment and bitterness. In forgiveness, I say it this way, since I'm also a minister, we're never more like God than when we forgive. And forgiveness, you'll find, is actually more for your healing than it is for the healing of the relationship. Relationship takes two people, but me forgiving is about me and my self-care, and about it has to do with what I want to bring to the relationship. Don't bring up old stuff. Forgive. Let things go. And when you decide to forgive, it's a dead issue. If something happens again, it's a new issue. Forgive that. If it happens again, it's a new issue. If it continues to happen, that's what you call a pattern of behavior. And patterns of behavior are indicative of something going on in one's soul that needs to be dealt with. Get it? Distinguish between something that I do and patterns of behavior. All right?